Chapter 9.4, Comparing Parts of a Whole with Graphs. So what we're going to look at in this section is sector graphs or pie graphs, as you may well know them, circle graphs, and bar graphs, which is basically the line sort of graph like we have down the bottom here. All right, a couple of things we've got to think about when we do these graphs. Excuse me. We have a number of steps here that we run through to end up with a graph a little bit like this. So what are we going to do? We've got to add the various parts up to find a total, divide each part by the total to obtain the fractions of each part. So we want to know what fraction of the circle each one of these little parts is going to be. We're going to multiply by 360 to find an angle, the angle of each sector that each survey response needs to be. And obviously we need titles and colours and so on, and different ways of identifying what the different parts of the circle are. It's a similar sort of process to get a divided bar graph, except instead of drawing our last step as a circle, we're drawing it as a line like this. And effectively up here we're finding what proportion of the circle each part is. In here we're finding what proportion of the length of this line each part is. So let's have a look at the worked example. Worked example 10. This question's about a survey. All year 7s at a certain school were surveyed about their favourite type of pet, and the responses recorded in the table. And this is the table that we have here. So two tasks were to do: draw a sector graph and draw a divided bar graph. Alright, first thing we want to know is how many responses do we have? And we have a number of dogs that these 78 people prefer dogs, 65 prefer cats, and so on. So what we want to do is total that up. And if we add all these numbers up, we'll get to 260. So 260 people were surveyed. We need to know this number because everything's going to become a fraction over 260 to draw our graph. So how do we do that? Alright, you can add an extra column on here on our table off to the side here, but I'm running out of paper, so I'll do mine over here. So we had people that prefer dogs were 78 out of 260. Cats, 65 out of 260. Birds, 39. Rabbit, 26. And the other category, which could have included anything else such as horses or lizards or all sorts of other things, 52. Right, and obviously the total will be, we add all these up, 260 over 260, which equals 1. Okay. Now, to draw a sector graph, we're going to draw it as a circle. So what we want to do is we want to multiply this by 360, because there's 360 degrees in a circle. So when we put this into our calculator, we go 78 divided by 260 times 360. And what we'll get is 108. And what that tells us is that part of the circle needs to be 108 degrees. This one here, we go times 360. And once again, 65 divided by 260 times 360. And we'll get 90 degrees, a quarter of the circle. The bird times 360. And remember, so this line here, this fraction line means divide. 39 divided by 260 multiplied by 360 equals 54 degrees times 360 for the rabbits will be 36 degrees. The other category is 72 degrees, and obviously this adds to a total of 360 degrees. Okay, It should add up to a complete revolution, which is our complete circle. Okay, so how do we draw this? Okay, to draw our pie graph or our sector graph, basically we start with drawing a complete circle. Using a compass or something completely round would be best to make it as neat as possible. Alright, if we start at the top here, draw a line from the centre up there, we know the dog should take up 108 degrees of our circle because we just worked that out in the last part. Alright, so we use a protractor and we measure around 108 degrees. And that's how we get the dog sector. Now, if you've got colours, you can colour it in. If you don't have it, you could just write in dog. The cat was 90 degrees. So, from this point here now, we now measure 90 degrees, which will be our right angle there. Birds were 54 degrees. So, from this point, we measure around, from there, we measure around 54 degrees. And get the birds, the rabbits, and the other. And when you get to this point here, if you measure that last angle in there, it should equal what you have left. Don't forget to put a title on there. Alright, if you're using colours, make sure you list what the colours actually are, so we know what it is. If you don't have colours, you can just write, for example, this one here is the cat. Make it clearly labelled like that. And there you have your sector graph. Alright, part B, drawing a divided bar graph. Alright, so here's my data that I had before that I got from my frequency table. As I said before, you can just add this column here onto the end of your frequency table if you have room, but I didn't have room on my previous piece of paper. Alright, so we're doing the same sort of thing now. Instead of putting this into a circle, we're putting it into a straight horizontal line or bar. Now, there's a couple of ways of doing it, and probably the easiest way to do it is to think, how long do I want my actual bar to be? My actual graph, I need a length that it's going to be. How long am I going to make it? If you want to make it 26 centimetres, 260 responses divided by 10 is 26. So if I divide that by 10, I could make that bar 7.8 centimetres, 6.5 centimetres, or so on. But 26 centimetres is reasonably large and probably too large for most of your exercise books. So, probably another way to think about it is, how long do I actually want my line? If I want my line to be, say, 10 centimetres long, if I multiply each of these by 10 centimetres, I'll get the length that I actually want my bar graph to be. But let's say, for example, we want a different length. Let's say we want our bar to be 13 centimetres long. Say that's the width that we've got in our book. So what we'd do is we would multiply each of these by 13 centimetres. So 78 divided by 260 times 13 equals 3.9 centimetres. Or 39 millimetres. Same here. This one divided by this one times 13 equals 3.25 centimetres. It's obviously getting smaller increments, you've got to be careful with your ruler. 39 over 260 times 13 is 1.95 centimetres, just short of 2 centimetres. The rabbits is 1.3 centimetres, and my other category will be 2.6 centimetres. So we have our lengths now. It's simply a matter of drawing up a bar that is 13 centimetres long. The first 3.9 will be the dogs, the next 3.25 will be the cat, and so on. What we end up with is a bar just like this one here. Don't forget your title on the top there. The first 3.9 centimetres was dog, the next 3.25 centimetres was the cat, the bird was 1.95, the rabbits, and the other was 2.6 centimetres. And we just measure each one. The whole lot should add up to our 13 centimetres that we agreed to have. And there's our completed bar, divided bar graph. And there's a nice picture of a bunny for you.